From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We're joined as always with our super producer, Andrew Triforce Howard. Most importantly, you are you. You are here. That makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. Oh, hold the phone. Super like us, throw us a rose, whatever you must do. We're so glad you're here. This is part 2 of a 2-part series on the Illuminati of online dating. And guys, with the magic of editing, we're not quite sure where this episode picks up, are we?
No, but we're going to find out in just a moment.
Joining our show already in progress. In media res? You know the one. Here it goes.
Yeah. Thanks for swiping right on the second episode.
Super like us.
Send us roses. Send us roses.
Back to our Atlantic article, there's a great quote that sums it up.
That's right. On April 21st, 1995, Kremen launched Match.com. Match was a free service supported by ads with the idea to charge for subscriptions when it grew. And there was only one way for it to reach that point. We need more women, Kremen shouted. Like, it's not literally. Storming through. No, he did. He shouted literally. While storming through their basement office. That's not,
everyone wants to go to a party where there's women.
It's not creepy at all. Yeah, every woman means 10 guys join. He literally said this out loud, apparently, as well.
So let's talk about going to the club, guys.
In the club, we're all fam.
When you go to the club, you may have noticed that clubs will generally allow groups of women into the club.
Oh, it's good business.
Why do they have women's night, ladies' night, or whatever they call those things? They will then have big lines, generally of men waiting to get in, and they will pay good money to go into that club. I think it's the exact same thing that begins to happen here. When Match says, hey, let's make these guys buy access to this club, essentially, where there will be some women, the women know that men are willing to buy their way into this thing. They're committed to some extent. There's some buy-in to it, literally. So it's not just a bunch of random dudes showing up on your
sort of
screen.
raises the bar to entry, the barrier to entry. Yeah.
In your mind,
Yeah,
at least,
that's
in
right,
some
that's
way.
Again, we're coming from we're telling you Gary's mentality, which is very heterosexual, to be quite honest, right? So one of the things that Fran does very well here, Fran Meyer, is she says we have to be inclusive, right? Everybody wants to meet someone. So how do we find those people? How do we connect them? And how do we make a little vigorous, in the process? And it turns out the team was correct there. As we study the evolution of dating apps, as we study the evolution of Match Group through its various iterations, what we see is further inclusiveness such that it allows people to gather data about you. This organization is a dating app conglomerate today with millions of users and over 45 seemingly distinct brands around the world. And these brands, to your earlier points, guys, they use the same business model. They're freemium. They're based on subscriptions and those in-app, what do we call them in video games? Microtransactions?
Sure, yeah. Microaggressions as well. No, for sure. In-app purchases, microtransactions, they don't seem like much at the time, but added up over the course of your use of the app or the game, not to mention every user's use of the app or the game, that's big money.
Yeah. Look, I'll be 100 with you guys. I have not had the privilege nor opportunity to do online dating. I'm very excited about the gamification of the whole thing. do a little super like, or throw a rose or a bum.
Whoa.
Do you throw a
I don't know
bumble?
about that. I think the issue, though, Ben, or what I've experienced is they're not upping your odds at all. Like it's really just kind of like preying on people who think that if they pay this extra cost, they're going to be more likely to get a match, and that's just not true. Especially if you're kind of, maybe not like some sort of traditionally attractive human being, which I think these are focusing on and geared towards, is folks that think this will give them an edge, when in fact it's just not true.
Well, according to the creators, it's very true, guys. The roses changed the game.
I don't know about that.
According to the folks that decided that you should pay for roses.
And they still call it a game. Sorry. Too far, maybe. But
Yeah, well, it is. Yeah, it's so funny. It's just weird to hear the people who are in charge of these things, because there's a head of Tinder, there's a head of all of them, Hinge, but there's also a head of Match Group, and the way, because it's all algorithm based, it's all algorithm run, and each one has its own algorithm, and each of the algorithms is built a little differently. And is gamified in such a way, but you are so right. They will not call it a game. They don't. It is not that. This is very serious business. This is helping people find a partner.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, it sure is. That's their singular philosophy, right? Which leads us to the other part. Is this a monopoly? Match pretty much runs the online dating business. Like, they have what we would call market capture. They own 2/3 of the dating app market easy in the West. You could call it a monopoly as the big fish in the pond here. We should have done a plenty of fish
for
joke.
sure.
I
just kind of feel like with business these days, the question of whether or not something is a monopoly is almost like missing the point, because it just feels like it's so rare for regulating groups and government organizations to truly go after and bust up monopolies anymore. And if they do, it seems to be kind of like a gesture to show that we mean business. But at the end of the day, like, so many things are monopolies. Like MasterCard and Visa are monopolies. The term, it just seems to be changing and becoming more and more amorphous and hard to pin down, or at least in terms of like what regulations actually exist. So I would say, yes, it's definitely a monopoly. But does the government care, or does anybody really care?
That's where we go into this. And I'm glad you brought this up, because again, it's the old parable of the grocery store aisle. You're looking for a box of cereal and you see this vast panoply on aisle 11, aisle 12, whatever. Tell us your aisle for cereal. You see all these things that look to be distinct brands. They're ultimately owned by a handful of huge corporations. Match Group is the hidden hand on the dating apps, on 2/3 of them, easy. Again, now, to your point, Noel, we might rightly wonder why there's no antitrust action going on. That's because, according to the federal government of the United States, it is not illegal to obtain a monopoly through the use of superior products, innovation, or business acumen, whatever that means, so long as you are not engaged in criminal activity. And Match got to where it is by aggressively acquiring other companies and brands in the online dating space, but they weren't really doing anything that any other company wouldn't do.
Sure. They were just kind of first to market. And then, like many big organizations like that are first to market, they have the power to buy up all of their competitors and then put them under their umbrella. Surely we see that with Facebook and them buying up all the apps that could potentially compete with their business, or to fight against their main flagship app, Facebook, for example, becoming increasingly irrelevant. So they've got, Instagram to lean on.
Yeah, well, in the case of Match, they saw Tinder doing something different. They're like, "Oh, wow, that's crazy. We need to acquire them." And then Hinge came along, and they're like, "Oh, we're the Tinder killer." And they're like, "Oh, let's get that." And then they still have the campaigns like Hinge. It's not like Tinder. Get Hinge. It's so different. get Hinge, but then you get on Hinge and then it's all the same users that are on Tinder, and you're matching with the same people on a different app.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like, what is happening?
It's sort of like giant beverage companies buying up little mom and pop breweries and giving the illusion that you're getting some sort of bespoke handmade product. And maybe it still is. I mean, obviously they change the formulas oftentimes, but you really are just still paying up stairs to Bevco or whatever, whatever the frick, you know what I'm talking about, Bush or what have you.
Sure.
Yeah, that's the one.
InBev, yeah. Shout out Yum Brands. Shout out our earlier grocery store cereal example. We also know the antitrust conversation would go a different way if Match was supplying what would be considered an essential service in terms of national security. So make no mistake, if this single corporate entity controlled 2/3 of the world's fossil fuels, there might be some conversations, some very different ones. Shout out aside. Hope you have a good time with your roommate Snowden.
Yeah, I hope we have a good time with, I don't know, ISIS.
Yeah, right. I mean, this conversation.
Hey, free Syrian army is what they're going
100. Exactly. I mean, this whole conversation, though, about monopolies and the effects that they have on consumers, there's a million different ways to slice it. And you're absolutely right, Ben. Compared to something like fossil fuels or, armaments or what have you, dating, owning the dating world online seems comparatively frivolous, right?
Well, yeah.
And with that, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
And we've returned. So this logically brings us to another question. Given that Match owns so many things, do they have a consistent, to your question, Matt, do they have a consistent philosophy and strategy across all these different dating services? Put simply, does Match actually want its users to meet what they would see as success? Like, do they want you to fall in love? Does that mean leaving the app? Is romance, true romance, not the movie, the actual experience, is it bad for business with Match?
Wasn't Hinge's whole sales pitch was that, I think, we want you to quit? Is that right?
Yeah, Hinge advertised itself as the dating app designed to be.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, so
until your boyfriend gets really busy, and then just load it back up on your phone again and see what's up.
But just to your point, Ben, that people are already thinking this, therefore they were like, okay, we need to combat this, from a marketing standpoint. So the fact that this is already on people's minds, probably, I think, is really indicative of the trends.
It's a real bag of badgers. It's well and good for consumers to log on to an app, to create a profile, find the love of their life. But the truth is, dating services make more consistent money when their users return, when they keep coming back. That's why you see what you were talking about, Matt, the gamified elements across these apps, the notifications that want you to always be plugged in. That's why you see the freemium model. You get a free profile, post a picture of you holding a big fish. You know what I mean? High-fiving. Who's a celebrity now? I don't remember.
Shaquille O'Neal.
Here's a picture of you high-fiving Shaquille O'Neal.
Good luck.
That means you're tall. You know what I mean?
Giant hands. Dope. Otherwise, you look like tiny baby hands. That would maybe not be the best picture to post.
But then if you want to, even if you are high-fiving Shaquille O'Neal while you guys went fishing, you still are going to be pushed to pay money at some point to get your super likes or, your super swipes. God, I sound old. To get a higher visibility profile. Oh, or importantly, to get the ability to message people who have not shown interest in you.
Yeah, but how weird. I didn't even know that was a thing. And you'd think that the women on the apps wouldn't want that. That would not be good.
It's called DMing. right? That's still a thing, but that's on Instagram, I
Right.
think.
Yeah, you're sneaking into those DMs, but you're not supposed to be able to do that.
Daddy moment.
100%.
Sneak in, man.
Yeah, just sliding into those DMs, you know it. But again, that just seems to go inherently against the whole philosophy that made women be down with joining these apps in the first place. So it's sort of like moving the goalpost a little bit, you know, by adding some of these extra features.
Well, yeah, because we need engagement, baby. Just a different kind than you were maybe thinking about when you downloaded this app.
I will pay someone to validate me with an emoji. Just hit me with a thumbs up.
I remember what I was going to say. It just reminds me, too, of the way that all social media apps, at the end of the day, these are social media apps, have gone with, like, you know, big users, big celebrities that have a gazillion followers. Every one of their followers doesn't see every one of their posts, and they're you know, these companies like Facebook and whatever, TikTok, I think you have to, like, pay in a little bit to make sure your post gets wider distribution. You know, you cannot expect that just because you have 500,000 followers that every one of those followers is going to see your post. You're kind of getting, what's the word, a shadow banned or whatever. Maybe that's the more extreme version, but this is very much a thing just in social media in general.
Yeah. It is a dopamine casino, and perhaps a dangerous one. We know, to the earlier point about what we would call being platform agnostic. I love what you're bringing up here, Noel, because we see that habitual users of dating applications tend to have more than one app. If someone has a Tinder, they have another thing. If someone has a Bumble, they have another thing. And the reason they have this is because the popularity of this stuff moves with the fickle, mercurial herd. The field of dreams only works when there are other people on the baseball field. So when you're in a dead dating app, you feel kind of dumb. You feel like you're wasting your time. So you go to the next one. And this is something that is easily leveraged if you own 2/3 of the dating apps. Now you have a consumer, not once, not twice, but multiple times. All the money goes to you. Match makes money either way as long as you keep using it. So for some people looking for, let's say, a consistent string of less committed encounters, this is a win-win. Of course, you're going to keep using these apps because when they work, it's the best way to find a new partner time after time. Time after time.
Yeah, and find a new strain of gonorrhea.
Oh, no,
I guess.
what, Matt?
In a quick
way.
There's crazy statistics about cases of gonorrhea in the United States and chlamydia and syphilis and just sexually transmitted diseases. And I wonder if the hookup culture has anything to do with it. Probably not.
Or senior
I was about
living
to
facilities.
say, Ben, that's very much a thing.
Dude.
Yeah.
Shout out the villages.
Oh,
We're going to leave that
and
one there.
every single cruise ever.
Because you've been on cruises.
Oh, I love me a cruise. A little upside down pineapple. They banned those. I can't do that anymore.
What?
I don't even know
They
what that
banned
is,
the
dude.
upside down
I don't know what that
pineapple?
is. Is that
You
is
know
that a
exactly
sex
what
move?
it
What
is.
is that? I don't know.
I think it's a swinger thing. No, that's definitely a swinger
got
thing.
it.
Yeah.
Welcome. Come on in. Come on in to this room. We've got
Leave your keys in the bowl.
bar policy.
Yeah. We're open to suggestions.
Accent on the
That's the
open.
upside.
Yes.
Oh.
No, open relationships. No, I wasn't being,
Yes. No, you're right.
I wasn't being gross.
It just worked.
Yeah.
It worked on both
It all
levels.
works.
That's all.
Yeah, it was brilliant. This part of the episode is brought to you by Disney Cruises.
Those
All
are the
right.
worst.
Oh, that's very not upside down pineapple.
Or
Oh
the
my
best.
God.
Or the best. You're right.
Or the best. Good save, Matt. We got to think about the economics at play. So these dating apps are ultimately, they are part of for-profit companies, which means that every time a couple successfully meets on a dating app, and they run and have their wild romance. They have their happily ever after. They leave that dating app, which means that for-profit entity has lost 2 customers minimum. If we're going upside down pineapple rules, they maybe lost 6. You know what I mean? To an earlier joke we made off air. The companies are aware of this. Not for nothing does Hinge advertise itself, again, as the dating app that is designed to be deleted. But we have to ask, how do these applications thread the needle, right? How do they toe the line of remaining attractive to consumers, appearing to help people, and at the same time ensuring some percentage of those people will stay in the environment long enough to help the bottom line? That's pretty, I don't know, man. That's a tough one.
Well, it makes me think of a situation I've heard, and I wonder how common it is, and maybe if you guys have heard of this or experienced this thing that occurs, and again, I'm only going off a Reddit post, guys, so I really have no idea, where let's say there's a relationship that started from an online dating service, like one of these apps, right? And It's going okay. Several months in, things seem to be pretty great. But for one reason or another, it's either becoming a little, not boring, that's not the right word, a little old hat to be with the same person in the 5th month or something. And predictable.
Yes.
And as a relationship begins, that's kind of one of the things that occurs. And scientifically, psychologically, once, that what they call the honeymoon period kind of ends or is tapering off and a true relationship begins, there's this thing that I've seen where people will jump back on the apps, not necessarily to go on a date with somebody else, but to get that hit of, oh, other people still think I'm attractive. Other people like me. People will talk to me and converse with me like this, so that you get that, you get the dopamine hits, but you also get that, I don't know, whatever that thing is that feels like you're getting validation from others. Like I'm still special, even as my relationship that I'm building is kind of slowing down a little bit.
Get that scratch behind your ears, right?
Well, yeah, and it makes me feel like it's something that is a part of culture, or seeping into culture, where you want or we need that validation in some way from other people who are potential like sexual mates who are not in our immediate circle or in our relationship.
And this is going to lead us to an interesting place, because we'll see that folks who are kind of relegated to the concept of Gen Z are tending to reject online dating just for this reason, because they're feeling that they themselves are gamified. I'd love to bring up, credit where due, Greg Rosalsky over at Planet Money from NPR leads us to a larger disturbing trend, which we'll see to the point about Gen Z and the wholehearted, or I guess the disturbing trends for online dating industries. Greg notes a journalist called Cory Doctorow who says that online dating is suffering from an online industry-wide trend called inedification.
Yeah. I think it's pretty clear what that means.
Yes. Greg writes, basically, Doctorow says tech platforms start off trying to make their user experiences really good because their first goal is to try to become universally popular and achieve economy of scale. Over time, they inevitably pursue their ultimate goal of making money, which ends up making the whole user experience in
podcast.
Oh. What?
You see it across industries. Yeah, and I appreciate that. We have to point out there are critics of podcasting and streaming services overall who have noticed something similar or noted something similar, particularly with the proliferation of ads. Let's just say it, guys. That's true.
It's true, and it's not something that folks who are part of larger organizations have any control over.
Wait, like the three of us?
No. Yeah.
Hey, 4. Andrew's here. So in a real free market, though, in a truly free market, the adherents of the dismal science, which is the street name for economics, they would argue the answer to these problems would be to just pull up your tent stakes and go to a competitor, right? Like if you don't like the way one person is making your hot sauce, go buy hot sauce somewhere else. You get tired of Tinder, you go to Bumble. You get tired of Bumble, you go to Hinge. The problem is, this is not hot sauce. There are fewer and fewer actual competitors out there, right?
Yeah, it's all been Tabasco the whole time.
Tabasco, the Kaiser Soze of hot sauce.
Still one of my favorites.
It's a good one. Classic formula. No complaints here.
So we have to ask then, why are there not new dating apps taking over the scene? Are the old tried and true powers of monopoly? Are they preventing the growth of new things, similar to the way older, larger trees block saplings from getting sunlight? Match does not think so. To the earlier point, Match says, our goals are perfectly aligned. They say, look, we get invitations to weddings from people who used to use our apps all the time.
Our corporate board of trustees get invitations to weddings? How do they even reach them?
Do.
Well, I don't understand. Oh my goodness, that sounds like some horse shit.
That's what they say, though. That's what they say. And they said, hey, also, if a happily married couple just so happens to encourage their single friends to hop on the merry-go-round, the dopamine casino of online romance, well, that's a win-win for us. De Niro face.
Of course. And I just thought this might be a good time to point out as well that, this is an industry, maybe perhaps due to the stdification that you're talking about, Ben, that's in decline. There's even a term that's floating around online called the Bumble fumble. There's a really good article on The Guardian that says Bumble fumble, online dating apps struggle as people swear off swiping. Online dating industry in crisis as shares fall and nearly half of all users report negative experiences on the apps. That includes things like getting scammed, talking to bots. Shares in Bumble crashed 30%. This article came out in August of 2024, by the way. That month, August, after a really bad earnings report came out. Match Group, the one we've been talking about mainly, owners of Tinder and Match.com, OkCupid, Hinge, and others, also have reported a decline in total number of paying users for 7 straight quarters. And the Pew Research Foundation reported that nearly half of all online users and more than half of female daters say they experienced very negative outcomes.
Well, if you look at if you go, I've got Yahoo Finance up, guys, just looking at Match Group Incorporated, or MTCH. And you can really see back in 2017, as the stuff that we've been talking about, all of these different apps begin populating and Matches acquiring all of them, you can see its stock price goes from like $30 all the way up to upwards of 150, so $156 per share. And then plummeted back down to around 40, now like 30 something per share. And that only, that was a span of 5 years where it was that thing you're talking about, Ben. They enshittified once they had it, on lock and enough users, and then everybody went.
And I think as people start to experience that enshittification effect, it starts to create a backlash where maybe while this, when it first started, seemed like a really great solution, now it's starting to seem like more of a problem than a solution. And I think people are starting to advocate for more IRL dating and just meeting people the old-fashioned way. There's always a backlash like that when technology gets this like kind of stranglehold, right?
Mm-hmm. And look, we're not saying that no one ever has gotten married off of a dating app. We're not saying that no one ever has written to the authors of an app like this or a dating site and said, hey, we want you to come celebrate our nuptials. But we are saying the trends of monopolization hold true in pretty much every single market where monopolies are allowed to flourish, no matter what it is. Online dating, not an exception. Many people new to the idea of these apps, they may have little to no concept of how big this operation has become. How many seemingly distinct apps are really just cuddly tentacles of a massive corporate entity out there in the deep, pulling your money ultimately to the same place. And that's where we have to point it out. Longtime fellow conspiracy realist, you know what we say about informed consent.
It's good.
Yeah, that's our stance. That's our hard stance on that. We'll pause for a word from our sponsors. And we've returned, diving in to the Illuminati of online dating. Bonus points to Greg, by the way, for freestyling a possible solution to the dating app dilemma. What if there was an app, and this is Greg's idea, I'm not going to steal his idea. What if there was an app that only got paid when users successfully match and then leave the app? What if that is the freemium? What if you only pay when you meet success?
Called putting your money where your mouth is. What that is.
It's not
no,
gonna
of course
happen.
not.
Well, the thing is, how do you enforce it? Because everybody would just say, "Oh, never found a match. Come on, honey, let's go."
Yeah, exactly. It's like when Uber drivers they don't get shown where they're supposed to drive their customer to until they do the pickup, and then some of them will actually cancel the ride and just get paid by the person individually off app. It's the easiest thing in the world to do and a little bit hard to track or enforce.
Whoa.
Yeah, maybe we have an Uber episode on the way as well. We have to say it. You guys, we have to say it, folks. The creators of Match and all the employees working there, past, present, and future, they are not supervillains. We assure you there is no one waking up gleefully dancing at the idea of ruining a relationship so they will have a user spending more money to mend their broken heart. The business depends upon being able to point to success. It's kind of like the dealers. I was thinking about this. It's like the dealers at a Vegas casino. They're obeying the rules of a game that the users agree to play. So whether you're swiping right on Tinder, whether you're doubling down on an 11 or something, I don't know how blackjack works.
Yeah, you do. You're pretty good at it. But it also benefits the house for people to witness somebody striking it big on one of those machines. They got to pay out, legally. That is definitely a casino regulation that they have to pay out a certain amount of time. We talked about this on the show. But that is also a big moment where someone walking through the casino sees that happen and says, that could be me. So if there weren't some success on these apps, they'd be worthless. And that was, maybe more in line with the creation of the app that got people on board. And now that inedification, I got to keep saying it, it's such a great word, has really led to decreased success stories and has led to a kind of an exodus of these users.
Yeah. It's just, for me, it's been kind of terrible just that they even exist. But I wonder if it causes any other types of anxieties that I'm not thinking about.
It does create a certain
people.
throwaway culture of relationships, as kind of like, well, if this one doesn't work out, I'm just back on the apps. And the fact that app is there in your mind, and I think reasonably so, you're thinking, well, she's just a swipe away from replacing me.
Yeah, well, and with those apps, as we said, they want engagement. So all they really want is for you to be talking with people, messaging people, and engaging in some other way with people. It doesn't mean they don't get anything if you actually go on a date, ever, right?
There's no way of even tracking that. There's no box to tick saying date, achievement unlocked or whatever. You get a gold star. It's not a thing.
They get something if you either paid for something or if you saw an ad, which just means you're going through different screens on the app.
It's a social media platform. That's what it's just a little more insular and a little more like not just open to the public. And again, on Instagram, you can have a private profile, so there are ways of doing that as well. But let's make no mistake, these apps are social media platforms. They're just of a different flavor.
I appreciate that point. I'd also like to give If we could take our hats off, we're an audio show, so everybody imagine us taking our hats off in commemoration of all our friends, our bros, our sisses, our loved ones who thought Tinder would solve their problems. I want to give a special shout out to the multiple friends of mine who got super into online dating, and I'll give an anonymous shout out here. One person described it to me, as an actor in the Atlanta area, as an unending series of auditions. And sometimes you end up asking yourself, why am I at this audition for a part I did not want to play?
Dude.
And that is a pretty poetic summation of the dopamine casino, I would imagine.
I completely agree. And I think I just sort of glossed over it. But in that article in The Guardian, there was another stat that said that around 50% of users of these types of apps that they polled have felt as though they were targeted by some sort of scam. And I just wanted to point out that I maybe mentioned this before. I was on jury duty here in Atlanta a year or two ago, and I didn't actually get picked, but I got to the point of like selection where they kind of give you a little bit of a rundown of the case. And it became very clear that it was about a robbery and kidnapping that took place when someone swiped on a dating app, and that person was targeted and robbed and taken advantage of in pretty horrific ways. I did not actually get to be part of the trial, but I got enough of the information to realize that was the case. And if I'm, in my limited experience with this kind of stuff, ran across a case like that, I'm sure there's a heck of a lot more of them.
Mm-hmm. And we hope those people are okay. There are so many other controversies we have yet to get to involving cases of assault, involving incredibly heinous things, up to and beyond murder. This does happen in this strange casino. We'd like to give a special thanks again to the fantastic work of the good folks at Land of the Giants, Dating Games, episode 2 in particular. That podcast dives deep into the backstory of Match Group, so please check out their work for more information, free wherever you find your favorite shows. We're not paid to co-sign this. We just think they did very good work.
Yeah, definitely shout out to Sanjita and Lakshmi who hosted that. Again, we went through the entire season 7. It's very, very good.
And here at the very end of 2024, as the humans call it, should you, like so many other people on this planet, be looking for love online or in person, we wish you the best without reservation. Please remember, there is one honest-to-God solution to the idea of finding true love. Learn to trust and love yourself. Do your best to be the kind of person that you one day could love.
And set boundaries.
It sounds a little hallmarky, but I think it's true, and that's part of love. I don't know. Man. Here we go. It's a two-parter, so find us,
Definitely agree with you, Ben, and Matt as well. Boundaries are very, very important, whether you're online dating or dating IRL or just even with your friends. It's something that I think cannot be overstated, how important teaching people, as Ben, you taught me, this expression, to how to treat you and not accept anything less than what you deserve.
And this is the end of our 2-part series on the Illuminati of online dating. We want to hear your thoughts. We hope this finds you well amid grand adventure. We hope that you are doing your best to be the kind of person that you can love. And to set some boundaries, we have 3 ways you can contact us: on the internet via email, on telephone lines, and then on just the regular onlines. We're not on Farmers Only anymore. I had to pull out of that one.
I traded my farmer's hat for a beanie that I'm wearing right now, keeping my skull warm. You can find us all over the internet, like Ben said, at the handle Conspiracy Stuff, where we exist on Facebook. We have our Facebook group, Here's Where It Gets Crazy, as well as on X, FKA Twitter, and YouTube, where we have video content for your perusing enjoyment. On Instagram and TikTok, however, we are Conspiracy Stuff, a show.
We have a phone number. It is 1-833-STDWYTK. When you call in, give yourself a cool nickname and let us know if we can use your name and message on the air. We highly recommend you put that number in your phone as a contact, just in case it gives you a little ring back. If you've got more to say than can fit in a 3-minute message, why not instead send us a good old-fashioned email? We are
the entities that read every piece of correspondence we receive. Be well aware, yet unafraid. Sometimes the void writes back. We love it when you email us. Send us more email. Send us more weird jokes. Send us your experiences in the trenches of online dating. We got your six. We got your back. We'll see you out here in the dark. Conspiracy at iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.